Welcome to the Grow Your Practice podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Chad Madden, owner of Madden Physical Therapy and Breakthrough. Join me each week as we dive into the best practices, systems, principles, tips, and tricks to help you grow your private practice. I opened a new site. How should I promote it? In this episode, I'm going to talk through the challenge of opening a de novo, specifically the marketing challenges that come with that, where you want to fill that new clinic, that first clinician schedule, and also fill the space up. You might be asking yourself, how can I fill that space as quickly as possible? You've made an investment. Let's say it's, $50,000, $100,000, $250,000 to open this new space, depending on the size and where you're at in the country. And you want to get to the point of break even as quickly as possible and ultimately a return on your investment. The other challenge that I hear owners talk about is how can we get the word out in a cold market? I don't have a past patient list there. I don't know all the physicians. I don't have any partners established. I'm not getting word of mouth referrals in a cold market. What can I do to get the word out? In this episode, we're going to talk through this challenge specifically. So how to promote a de novo clinic, a new clinic in a cold market. And when you do this the right way, what you're going to do is, when you have a new clinic and it's not earning money and it's really an expense, that's a liability, right, to your overall practice. So if this is your second clinic or if it's your 50th clinic, when you're paying money for underutilized space, that is a liability to your practice. It's an expense. And what we want to do is get to a break even and beyond profitability where we have a margin of safety, and that liability becomes an asset. That's why you open that clinic, so you can serve people and you can do so profitably. Certainly you don't want a drain on your profit margin just by opening de novo clinics. The other thing is, time is money. So every single month in underutilized space, we're paying for lease expenses, utilities, staffing, etc. And speed is of the essence. A few years ago, this was pre-pandemic, I believe it was 2018 or 2019, surveyed roughly 100 practice owners and asked, when you're opening a new clinic, how many months before you break even? And the average answer, what do you think it was? The average answer was 30 months. I think that is very slow. For times where we've opened a de novo clinic in my own private practice, we were able to hit that break even within 90 days. And I think, again, that, time is money, and we're looking for speed in this situation. We can't wait for, that random physician referral to trickle in and hope that we're going to make it in 3 months. There's a better, more causative way we can look at this. The other thing that happens is, when you have a few of these under your belt and you're able to open new clinics and rapidly fill that space and fill the schedules in a cold market, it gives you confidence in expanding and in the end, helping more people. You're increasing the confidence that your shareholders have with you. And that's really, really important. There's also a huge boost in morale, right? I remember when we opened our third clinic, it was in Dauphin, Pennsylvania, and it had been maybe 8 or 9 years since we had opened a de novo clinic. And so this is a small town, central Pennsylvania, north of Harrisburg, population roughly 3,000 people. And there had been another practice that had been there in that same exact space for 8.5 years prior to us going in there. And they know, only because I know the director, I think the previous high for visits in a week was 73. So that was after 8.5 years of being in this location. We knew there was a need in the community. There weren't any other players, and we were going to go up there. And the reason that we were invited to go there was because the landlord was also a physician who was transitioning over to concierge medicine. So his referrals were going away, but he knew that we could market direct to cold public. He said, he was like, you have marketing down. Direct to consumer marketing is what he called it. So I was like, this is great. We went in, it was roughly 1,200, 1,300 square feet, something like that. And Dan Hintershitz, credit to him, we had marketed that clinic prior to opening. And in week 7, he hit 107 visits in a week. And over the course of the next year, in the first full year, he grew that clinic to 200 visits a week. Again, this is in a town of 3,000 people. So fairly challenging, had doubled what the previous practice had done in almost tripled it in their 8.5 years there. And he did that within 16 months. Again, the lots of challenges here. We have opened now, I think I counted 6 or 7 de novo clinics over the years. 2 of them we struggled with quite a bit, and I want to share that with you, what we did there. And then 4 of them, we figured it out, and we were able to get to profitable within 90 days, 180 days. So when we're doing this, our challenges, we're investing $100,000 to $200,000 to open up a clinic, and that is for the space build out, the new equipment, everything else that goes into that, depending on the size of the practice. Our wheelhouse right now is that 1,500 square foot has worked out, to 2,000 has worked out really well for us. But yeah, any time that we have that capital outlay, many of our de novos have been straight cash investments, and a few times we've had loans. We want to try to recoup that initial capital outlay or capital expense as quickly as possible, and we're not looking, to take 5-10 years to pay off that clinic. So that's the struggle. When we're thinking about the solution, there's really 5 places we can get a new patient from. So when we open up a new clinic, we can get new patients from, and this from previous podcast episodes, but we could get it from reactivation. Well, in a brand new clinic, that's not really possible, right? Unless somehow the clinical director is bringing some patients with him or her from another practice location, which we've dabbled in that a little bit. It's not sustainable, but we need new patients, and we can't rely on reactivations because there's not really a new patient list or a past patient list at that new clinic. So that's out. The next one is word of mouth referrals. Well, if we don't have patients coming through, we can't really rely on word of mouth referrals in order to grow the clinic, at least initially. The third one is physician referrals. In a completely cold market, we don't know those physicians yet. I know 10, 20 years ago, this was the way to go in private practice, specifically PT, is go out, get physicians to commit to the referrals. We have not done that. Less than 10% of the new patients in our practice are coming from physician referrals. So we are primarily direct to consumer. That's a huge swing from 15, 20 years ago when we were nearly 100% physician referral, but we've had to learn how to market direct to the consumer. Next level up is partners. Again, we're in a brand new area. We likely don't know the organizations or have those established relationships. We don't have relationships with physicians. We don't have many relationships with partners that are in the area that could be promoting us. So what are we forced to do? We're forced to rely on cold traffic marketing. And what we do in those cases is we use 2 types of media. So there's this principle, and it's called market message media match. You've likely have heard me talk about this before. A few years ago, 10 or 12 years ago, Carl Mattiolo, the founder and CEO here at Breakthrough, had surveyed 300 practice owners and asked them, what was the biggest mistake you ever made in marketing your practice? And then he also asked, what was the most successful thing you've ever done in marketing your practice? Oddly, those 2 lists were nearly identical. So it took us quite a while, about 3 or 4 months, to decipher what owners were saying. But many of the things were both on the most successful and the least successful thing for owners. And so it would be, like print ads would be on both the best ever and worst ever. Patient newsletters, physician newsletters, email marketing, SEO, Google ads, YouTube ads, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, and radio, television, swag, which is, hats and t-shirts and logoed Yeti cups and things along those lines. So sponsoring 5K or sponsoring the high school musical or sponsoring a little league team, all those answers were on both sides. And it took us a while, and Carl had the wherewithal to go back to the people that said it's the least successful ever and say, can you send me what your ad that you put on a postcard or your ad that you put in a magazine or a billboard or whatever it was. And what we quickly saw and were able to decipher was 100% of the answers that came back for most successful marketing or least successful marketing were focused on the media selection. Nobody focused on the messaging. And frankly, the messaging that did not work on those pieces, the messaging was horrible. It was an absolute miss. There's a lot of clinical language in there, clinician language talking about high high level advanced terminology that you and I understand as clinicians, but the lay public does not understand, like spondylolisthesis or rotator cuff impingement syndrome, things like that. So, and again, we never would have seen this if Carl wouldn't have asked for, like, can we see the failed marketing piece? So message was a miss. And what we've learned over time, marketing direct to the consumer, is that three things must align in order for our cold traffic marketing to work. Market is, we have to have a target market. When we open up our de novos, we're targeting 45 to 64-year-old family-oriented females. That means she's likely married, she likely has children and possibly grandchildren. And why do we market to her? Because she's the number one consumer in the world. She directs more healthcare spending than anybody else. If she's 48 years old in the US and high school educated, or 53 years old in the US and college educated, she directs more money than any other demographic in the world. So we want to target that demographic. And who else could we target? Well, we could target 15-year-old baseball pitchers, or 12-year-old gymnasts, or 83-year-olds that have gait and balance issues, right? There are lots of different people that we could target. This is the one that we go after. So that's our target market. The next part of the principle that we have to figure out is, what media is she consuming? So in our case, when we go to the de novos, we know, working with the breakthrough advertising team, we can see, how many people that fit the demographic are in this area that are on Facebook, that are on Instagram and are active there. And then we always try to pick at least one online media and one offline media. So is there a cute weekly coupon clipper or that we can use, or do we need to own the mailbox with postcards or some other form of direct mail? Is there a radio station that everybody in the area listens to, or is there a television station that everybody in the area is watching? So we always try to go with one online media, which is going to be, again, likely Facebook or Instagram, and then we try to go to one offline media based on the consumption in that area. And what we do is we advertise, and this is where the messaging comes in, right? We have to have three things aligned: market, which we talked about, our message, which I'll talk about here in a second, and then our media. So we pick one online, one offline media, and our messaging must be focused on a pain point, using terminology and using the language that that target demographic uses. It doesn't really matter what my language is as a physical therapist, right? As a clinician, I'm not trying to market to other clinicians. I'm trying to market to that 45 to 64-year-old family-oriented female. So I must use her language. And in our case, we go for diagnoses that we know have worked in other areas. And most notably, they're going to be, rotator cuff. So we run a rotator cuff and shoulder pain workshop. They're going to be hip, knee pain, or pelvic floor issues, or back pain. We're going to go after a diagnosis that we know is a pain point in that area based on previous results at other clinics. So three things that we can offer in our messaging: we can offer a product, right, which would be like a piece of TheraBand. And we don't do that in marketing to cold traffic in a de novo clinic. I've never seen it win in an A/B split test longer than 1 month. We could offer a service, so we could offer a free screen. Same thing here. Don't really prefer to do that long term. Haven't seen it be successful. Straight to an appointment is a really big ask in a cold market. And then we can also offer information. Lots of reasons we prefer information. One, it buys us time to build trust, time for that potential patient to know, like, and trust us. And we're also offering a ton of goodwill in the community. And we become known long term with our branding effect that we are providing tremendous value, information, education within the community. So we have a proven message. We do that on our Facebook and Instagram advertising. And then we also do it in our offline legacy media advertising as well. And typically what we'll do in a de novo clinic is, before the date of open, when possible, we run 2 workshops before we officially open. So let's say we're going to open on, I'll just pick a date, September 1st. In August, we would run 2 workshops, likely one 3 weeks before we open and one the week before we open. What that will do is create a lot of interest. We'll have patients scheduling for that first week, September 1st. And then that new director, who's also a clinician, most likely, is going to walk into a relatively full schedule. And they'll be in a prime position that not only is their schedule full with the 40, 50, 60 visits a week or whatever the full schedule is for you, that they'll likely be able to bring on a second clinician, which we can most likely fit into 1,200 square feet or 1,500 square feet or 2,000 square feet. So we want to hit the ground running on day one when we open. I want to talk about next the self-limiting belief that commonly gets in the way. Years ago, and this still exists to some degree, many of us thought, if I think they called it hanging out your shingle. I'm not sure where that saying comes from, but the idea was that if you had a place of business, you could hand out a few script pads and there was so much business to go around. I'm using all the cliches that I heard early on in my private practice career, that there was more than enough business to go around and every practice would be fine. Well, it doesn't take you long to be in private practice to realize that's not really how it works, right? Maybe you have a waiting list today. If so, congratulations, good for you. I know in those cases, likely you had worked in the area for a few years and you had a patient following or you had some physician trust and you were able to open up. When we're going into a completely cold market where we don't have those relationships yet, that is very difficult for us to rely on. So I don't want to wait 30 months to get to that break-even point. We want to do this as quickly as possible. I know that 3 months inspires a lot more morale and also confidence within our group. The other thing that I've heard owners say way too many times when I'm talking with an owner who's just opened a new clinic is, well, yeah, we're going to open next week. We don't have any new patients lined up, but I'll figure that out later, right? That there's some magical marketing fairy that's going to come in and fill the schedule. That does not work. And I've seen and had way too many panicked conversations of owners that have done that. And now they're 3 months in, 6 months in, there is no influx of new patients. They're realizing that they have to have some sort of outflow, and now they have to go out and learn how to market, right? That is the wrong time to be doing that. We want to learn how to market that new clinic early, and we want to have a plan in place so that there's no soft opening, right? We're going to be fully committed day one. We want that schedule full. We want new patients coming in week one, and we want that to grow from day zero, ground zero on out. So figuring it out later, bad idea. The other one is a pretty nasty self-limiting belief that I used to say myself. I fell into this early and then I learned otherwise, but it's something along the lines of, I'm going to rely on high quality of care and word of mouth referrals. That's the right way to grow. Well, as with any self-limiting belief, the first thing that we do is we become aware of it, right? So I just gave it to you, what most of us say. And it's easy to poke holes into that. The second step is to look and see if it's factual. Well, I don't think you could find a clinician in the US who says that they don't provide a high quality of care. And I don't care if they're seeing one patient every 2 hours, spending 2 hours with every patient or 4 hours with every patient, or if it's somebody that's seeing 400 visits a week. Both of those clinicians believe that they have high quality of care. And I mean, that's subject to, it's very subjective. It's open to interpretation, but no clinician says, my quality of care is kind of mediocre or poor, right? Everybody thinks their quality of care is the highest. The other component is relying on word of mouth referral. There's a right and wrong way to do that. But where that comes from is in the early 1900s, the AMA or the AMA predecessor had guidelines. And what they were trying to do, the AMA, early AMA, American Medical Association, was trying to separate their licensed physicians as separate and different than charlatans, which were, the snake oil salesmen that were going from town to town in their horse-drawn buggy selling some sort of elixir, right? That was not patented or approved in any way, but it was a cure-all. And so what they said was, well, okay, so these charlatans are advertising heavily in the newspaper, which was the primary media selection at the time. So the way that we're going to separate ourselves as licensed physicians is we're not going to advertise at all. In fact, we are going to prohibit, we are going to ban our physicians from advertising. Well, very quickly, through complaints, a lot of physicians realized that this was an error. And right, think about how insane that is, that if I have a knee issue that a physician couldn't tell me or advertise whether they specialized in knee pain or not, or a gastrointestinal issue or headaches or whatever it is that they specialized in, right? They couldn't say that. They couldn't advertise their services in any way. So the newspapers quickly became dominated by charlatans, the snake oil salesmen, and now the AMA had to recorrect, right? So they quickly did that. However, that belief, right, you should be able to not advertise, not market your services, simply rely on your high quality of care that you're delivering, and then you're going to have a larger influx of patients than you could possibly realize. That is fairly short-sighted, not real-world tested. Again, every once in a while, I'll meet a practice owner who has worked in the area for quite some time, and I'll go back to, I had worked for 3 years in our area as a physical therapist. When I opened up and people knew that I was open, I did have an influx of new patients just because having a little bit of reputation in my area, but it certainly wasn't enough to fill my schedule plus another clinician, plus in the end, it ended up being multiple other clinicians. So had to do something else. We rely on cold traffic marketing. That's really where we have to hedge our bet. Is it more expensive than reactivations? Absolutely. We are always going to pay more in terms of time, money, and resources for cold traffic marketing in a brand new area for a new patient than we are in a clinic that's been established for 5, 10, 20 years. We're going to be able to, ratchet down our marketing spend over time. But, in the end, we can't rely on high quality of care alone to fill a new clinic. We can't figure it out later. We have to figure it out before we open and hit the ground running there. And we can't just hang out a shingle and hand out a few script pads and hope that we do okay, right? Unless our father-in-law is a physician down the street and is going to send us, 10 new patients a week, something like that. But most of us can't rely on that. We have to be smarter. Just to recap once again, we talked about the challenge of opening a de novo clinic and how to promote that, how to fill our schedule as quickly as possible, and ultimately the space, how to turn that liability into an asset. We talked about the benefits of doing that. Time is money, speed is important, and we want to increase morale and confidence in expanding and helping more people in the future. I shared the story, at least a few examples of opening de novo clinics, both positive and negative, and in the end, the formula that we're using to open our de novo clinics and promote them so we hit the ground running, and how well that has worked, where we're hitting break even within 90, 180 days of opening. We talked about the market message media match framework and how you can think through that, identify your target market, make sure you're using the media that target market uses. Also use messaging, talking about the main pain points you want to attract, the main diagnoses you want to attract, using the language that target market uses, not what you use as a clinician. And then we talk through 3 self-limiting beliefs as well. I do want to share one other thing with you. This past week, I was talking with an owner about marketing and specifically marketing a de novo clinic. And I wrote out 36 processes that we have in our marketing system. I go through, and this is simply a checklist, but I go through all 5 new patient pathways, reactivations, word of mouth referral, physician or professional licensed referral, partner referrals, and then cold traffic marketing. And I laid out all of our processes and what that looks like. If you'd like a copy of that, simply click on the link. You can download a copy so you know what a marketing system looks like that addresses all 5 new patient pathways. It's going to give you confidence whether you're opening a new clinic or you have an established clinic and you're just looking to fill the schedules of your existing therapist, or you're just looking for consistency in your new patient flow. This is how we think about, this is how we've evolved over 20 plus years, working with now over 2,000 private practice owners from all over the world, not only all 50 states in the US, but 11 countries internationally, physios in 11 countries internationally as well. This is what I use in my own private practice. So if you like that sheet, it's absolutely free. You can click on the link, download it, and get a checklist of the marketing processes that we have in our marketing system.